Stay tuned for the Joan Quinn Profiles. Joan served the state of California as a member on the Arts Council and on the Film Commission. She was formerly on the Architectural Commission and fulfilled 2 terms on the Fine Arts Commission for the city of Beverly Hills. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview magazine, Condé Nast Publications, and the Hearst Corporation, Joan covered the world of fashion, the mysteries of food, the excitement of theater, and the international art scene. She continues to find people who are on the cutting edge of their professions. Here's Joan Agajanian Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. We're taping here in West Hollywood, and waiting to be profiled is photographer Levon Parian. Levon Parian just returned from Armenia, where he had an exhibition of his work. He was born and raised in Beirut, Lebanon, and studied at the Southern Illinois University, Art Center, Pasadena, and he has a Master of Fine Arts from Cal State Northridge, where he currently teaches in the art department. His work is included in private collections and in museums all around the world. You studied science at university. What does science have to do with photography?
Well, actually, it has a lot to do with it. But the reason the reason I started was because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and a lot of students go into school thinking, they're not sure, so just get a general degree, and I did that. But I started to focus on cellular physiology.
I was going to say, is that general degree?
So I really enjoyed that, but I found that something was missing for me, and I want to tell you a story about when it really transformed for me. I had asked a girl out to, she was in one of my chemistry classes, and I asked her out to a movie, and we didn't know what it was. In the student union. It was just a movie, and it was called Clockwork Orange.
Oh, wow.
We didn't know what it was.
Right.
So we went to this movie, and it's a first date. We didn't know. I'm watching this movie, and the rape scene comes on, and I'm standing there. I'm so mesmerized. She says, "I have to leave," and I said, "Goodbye."
Oh, you just let her go?
Yeah, it changed my life.
Really?
It changed my life. That was the moment I realized I wanted to be an artist.
But it was very artistic.
Yeah.
It brought a lot of people to their film careers too, because of the way it was made, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And the acting was phenomenal.
Yeah.
So that was your turning point?
It really was.
What happened? Did you finish school? And
no, actually, I left. I was working on my master's degree in cellular physiology, and I just said, I've got one life to live. I got to live it the way I want. So I decided, what's the best school in Illinois for art? And I went down to Southern Illinois University, the best photography school at the time.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's why you went there.
Yeah, I went down there, and it was terrific.
And then you went to Art Center, which is also really good, right?
Yes, I went there. I got my fine arts training from Southern Illinois, and then I went to Art Center, and it was more of a commercial school.
Well, but then you went into commercial work too.
Yes,
so you went into I don't know, all different kinds of art photography and commercial photography.
Yeah, I was always on the edge. It was, my thing is to always be experimenting. As I was always experimenting with different ways of projecting film and camera and all that sort of
And
thing.
you used a lot of different cameras.
I did. I have 250 cameras.
Oh, I think that's a collection.
It's a collection.
That's a collection. Do
Yeah.
you use them all?
No, there's no way.
We have one really
we
great
do
camera
have one
here.
yeah.
Hand me this, because
this
talking
is
about cameras, this is quite heavy.
Yeah.
This is so heavy.
Yeah. That's a Revere, and what attracted me to that camera, I actually used that camera. I used that camera to produce my MFA exhibit, and
that was at Northridge.
That was at Northridge.
So let's go back to our 3D camera.
Yeah,
It's so heavy. It's a
think
Revere. What kind of film does it use?
The first thing I wanted to do something really interesting. I started working on my MFA.
Oh yeah, right.
And I was looking for a way to have spontaneous images, because I had a very big, large studio camera that was 3D, and it's about this big, literally. And every time I took it out, everybody was noticing it. And I didn't want that. I wanted something that I could be really sneaky and quick and shoot really fast. And this camera offered that. It's called a Revere. And I could shoot as fast as I can think.
It has two
It has two lenses. It imitates the eyes.
Oh.
So what happens is when you see stereo, if you look on one side, you'll see, if I look around this, I see the camera on this eye.
Mm-hmm.
But when I close this eye, I don't see the camera.
Oh, so
that's how stereo works.
And then this is what the kind of film it takes? I mean, kind of picture it takes?
After you take the photograph, then you make a double print. It's just double image.
It comes out like that. So there's like, you said this was 35 millimeter film.
Exactly. It's 35 millimeter film, and you get 2 square images on each side. And it's
so that's your eyes?
20, huh?
Those are your eyes, one on each side, right?
Yeah. And each one is slightly different. Just enough so that when things are closer, they're more exaggerated. And when things are further away, they're more in tune with each other. Mm-hmm. So your eye, stereo imagery takes place in your brain. That's why it fascinates me. It actually is a mental process.
I see.
We don't see.
So then you put it in this?
So you put it in this viewer. This is called a Holmes viewer, invented in the 1800s. And this, it's a manual focus. You can see I'm focusing it. And once I get it in focus, I see in 3D. I see stereo. You want to try it?
That's fantastic.
The nice thing about that one is you can put it
the
over your
focus is
glasses.
where you
That's why I like
Yeah.
it. So
it looks like they're all walking there.
Yeah, try it in and out, in and out. And once you get it in focus, I want to hear an oh boy or a wow.
I got it. Because it's like they're like just walking into you.
Yeah.
They're fantastic. So what did you use these for? What did you use these images for?
Okay, this was a series. The series I created was called Scopophilia. And it's a series about how men look at women.
Oh.
And actually how women dress for men. And this is obviously, from my perspective, you know.
And when did this come in your career?
2005.
So you already had started a studio. You had a studio in the 80s.
I had my studio. I did commercial work. If you say commercial work, I was more on the design work. I worked on album covers, movie posters, things like that.
Wonderful. But you did a lot of album covers.
I did.
And you did portraits. Did you do portraits in your studio?
I did it. Well, I did a lot of portraits in my studio, but I did a lot of portraits outside and people's location. I prefer to photograph people in their location.
Were they commissions?
Yeah, most of them.
Because you have this great picture of Wolfgang Puck.
Yeah, I worked for a lot of magazines. In fact, I worked for Interview Magazine, which you were also working for at this time.
When I was the editor, right?
Yeah.
West Coast editor.
Yeah.
But the picture of Wolfgang?
That was for Maine Magazine. That was Tom Sewell.
Tom Sewell.
Yes. Tom
I
Sewell.
worked for him too.
Yeah, he was. He had a magazine called Maine Magazine, and I was the photographer for him.
Oh, I forgot that.
Yeah, and I took all his pictures of all his. All the people he was interested in. Yeah, celebrities.
Well, Wolfgang wasn't a celebrity
I got
then.
pictures of Ed Moses. I got pictures of
Rouchet, all of his
people
friends.
who weren't celebrities at that time that were up and coming, like Frank Gehry. I told you about the picture I took about him. Yeah.
Was that for Maine Magazine?
That one was for, because what happened was, it was very interesting. The LA Times, or there was a magazine called Style, LA Style, and they would steal all our ideas. We'd go
from
into
Maine Magazine.
Yeah, we'd do all these amazing images, and then all of a sudden we'd see them. The next issue would be, in there they would like take the same ideas and do the same stuff.
Same thing happened to me. I would do these shows, and then Channel 5 would have all my guests on their show. And I'm like, how does this happen? Because the scouts were watching everything. We're reading, our little Maine magazine, watching little Joan Quinn profiles, and then taking them out into bigger places.
Yeah, and
but
so
we have to hurry.
Yeah,
we have.
So the work I'm doing, I'm actually the show.
In Armenia?
In Armenia, I didn't actually have a show. I was setting up a show that the newest work that I did was this work, which is the, I don't know, some of you might have seen it down at Grand Park.
Okay,
eyewitness show.
Let's talk about this book, and then I'll get to the eyewitness.
So this is the next show coming up that I'm doing over there, and it's from this. This work is from the 70s. It's damaged images, slides from like 1960s and 70s from my family albums.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And they're images that I have written. The book is called Lost Memories. So it's basically memories of what I remember from the photographs and the stories. And we traveled in India and Pakistan. We lived in those countries. So we have some really fascinating images.
Those are great.
From that.
And then let's get to this, because this was the commemoration of the 100-year
Armenian genocide.
Of the Armenian genocide by the Turks.
Right.
And there was a show at the Music Center and Grand
Right,
Plaza.
it was 3 tiers we had over by Grand Park. It was sponsored by Michael Antonovich. It's Ada Oshagan and myself. We photographed these survivors starting in 1995.
So it took a long time to put this whole body of work together.
Yeah.
And how big were these? This is just a maquette.
Yeah, we made maquettes for this. And these pieces were 8 foot to 16 feet high.
And then they were mounted. You had to have
we
an
had
architect.
steel frames and a lot of weight on them, and they were made so that a 125-mile-an-hour wind wouldn't blow them over.
So you had to have
We had structural engineers, we had architects, we had
and what was it
a
printed
huge crew
on?
of people.
This
vinyl.
is on paper.
It was vinyl. Yeah, that's just a dummy. I was making little dummies so that we can set them up and see like where we want which images together and what.
And then you also wrote about it, because underneath each photograph
these are their stories. We had a group of people who took oral histories of, and we have so many people involved. I wish I could thank everybody, but there's too many people.
It's so great.
The work I also wanted to show you was
tell me
this is from the work I started back in '89. This was I was photographing genocide survivors back then.
This is a piece of tin?
It's brass.
Brass?
Yeah.
And you've transferred the photograph on top of it?
I put photos on brass, and copper, and I did a whole series.
Beautiful.
The nudes I did are all like this.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. So,
and where do the brass pieces come from?
I got them from a place called Industrial Metals.
You just buy it?
I pounded them. A friend of mine was pounding metals, so he turned me on to that. He would pound metal, and then and I would put the emulsion on it, and this is when I pounded, and I did. It's called The Burden of Christ, and it's about the burden of the Armenians being Christian in a Muslim world and being surrounded by Muslims.
That's so
and
interesting.
That was my original idea. And you see there's 2 images.
Yes,
the one is the portrait and the other is the hand. So once Ada and I started working together, then that's the technique we started using for our portraits.
But when you were doing the portraits, did you do the head and the hands too the same way?
Yeah, I did.
You've always been doing that?
I've always been doing that.
And then what about the cross? You made that too?
Yes. Yeah.
I'll tell you, we've got so much to talk to you about, but I think our time is just about running out.
Yeah,
Tell us that one good story about Frank Gehry when you finished photographing him.
After we finished shooting, he said he didn't have a car. Could I give him a ride? So his wife had borrowed his car or something, and I said, sure, and I took him home, and he showed me around the house. He said, "Bill, you want to see my house?" I said, yeah, okay.
The industrial.
It's very industrial, and everything was leaking. It had rained the day before.
Everything was leaking.
The entire house was like a sieve. Like things were between the cracks and and everything, because he was using these odd materials. Right. He was not using conventional materials, and everything was just like in total chaos in the house.
Well, he's come a long way from that time. Was that in the 80s?
Yes,
that was in
80, probably about 83 or 4.
He's come a long way, but he's still living in that house.
He is?
Yes, and I don't think it's leaking anymore. We'll be right back with Levon, and we'll talk some more about your work when we come back. I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome back to the Joan Quinn Profiles. We're talking with photographer Levon Parian, who just came back from Armenia. He has exhibitions of his work all over the world. He just finished a project in Grand Park in downtown Los Angeles, and he's hoping to take that Grand Park exhibit to other places. You've been talking about that, haven't you, Levon?
Yes.
Do you have any prospects for that?
Yeah, it's a group effort. It's not just my work. It's really a accumulated work of many people, and the eyewitness exhibit is hopefully going to travel to San Francisco, Fresno, and Sacramento. We're hoping to do that on the West Coast. Then on the East Coast, we want to go to New York, and hopefully we actually are trying. We have some inklings. Maybe we'll get it into Istanbul. This is an idea.
Which would be great, but you have to go to Boston. I mean, these cities that you've talked about are really cities that are filled with the Armenian population.
Right.
Even though you want other people to come in and see it, right?
Yes.
So I think we talked about this wonderful
the
cross
work I did
and
before.
the work you did before.
Memoir is, it came later. It came much later. It's my grandfather's memoir, and my father wanted me to work on it. It was my grandfather's dream to have it published. It was my father's dream to have it published, and I finally got around to doing it. It took me 3 years to edit it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Did you have notes? Was it written? How was it written?
He wrote the memoir. My grandfather wrote the memoir, but in fact, he dictated to my grandmother. And she wrote it down.
Was it in Armenian or in English?
It was all in Armenian. So my mom translated it, and then I edited it. And the most amazing part is there are pictures and documents that are unbelievable. People flip out when they see it.
How did they save them all?
It's through the AGBU.
Oh, it was.
Yeah, and they had a photographer, I think, that just took pictures with him, and he had a lot of pictures taken, and they're amazing.
And where was he from? Where is he from?
He was from Urfa, and he he was in the Ottoman cavalry.
I was going to say, was it Urfa Turkish, right?
Yeah, Urfa Turks. Yeah, he was in the Ottoman cavalry when they decided that they were going to start killing Armenians. He escaped and went down to Jabal al-Druz. And he was with the Druze people.
Really?
And he disguised himself, and he was acting as a merchant. And eventually, because the war came down further south into Syria, which is now Syria, he escaped down into Al-Aqaba. Now, if you know the story of Lawrence of Arabia and T.E. Lawrence, it's almost exactly the same story.
That's your grandfather's story?
He meets the same people. He meets the kings of the Arab revolt. He meets King Faisal.
Oh, wow,
and
really?
He gets notes. He has letters.
Egypt, right? Coming in.
He has notes in here that say that he can stop a military train. He can stop a military train and load it with people and let them go wherever he wants. That's the power he was given.
I was going to say he had that kind of power.
Yeah.
But now, you're a photographer, I think. Have you made films before?
I've made some small films.
Well, you have to make a film of this.
We're working on a documentary right now.
Yeah, a documentary would be great. But it also really is what you did with Grand Park, right? Getting verbal knowledge and
Yes. It's the most important thing that all Armenians should do, in my opinion, is to document their ancestors. If your grandparents wrote notes about the genocide, if your family has documentation of any kind, you need to write it down. You need to secure it. You need to make it as formalized as possible and take it and give it to a library.
But I think many immigrants should do that because we're a country of immigrants right now, and we leave behind what really brought us here.
Yes.
And so much of that is lost, and I think that's a really good lesson.
Yeah.
And it's also a lesson as an educator that you are thinking about, because what do you teach in your classes?
Well, what I teach, right now I teach black and white photography with film.
You do
You shoot
with film.
You actually
and
shoot
nobody
film.
uses film, right?
I tell all my students, you're going to be using film, and you're going to tell your grandchildren that that you used film, and they're going to ask you what that was.
And can they go into? And then what happened? You went into the digital age yourself.
Yeah, when I had my studio, I actually realized at some point that I needed to find a new way to make money, because it was dying. The photography business was dying. Anybody who had a studio realized the overhead was very high. Our bread and butter accounts were drying up because our graphic designers started taking pictures.
Well, what about us in the journalists? We had no place to write. Our magazines were closing. We had, no outlets.
In almost every field, the computer destroyed the industry.
Right.
New ones were created, obviously.
I know,
right.
new, right.
But the old ones were lost, and
that's
typesetting.
when I met you. Right.
Typesetting.
Right.
Think
Nobody
about those
knows
old
what that
computers
is.
that they used to have.
No.
We had these huge computers that,
Right. And George Herms, the artist, used to use this big press. I mean, he kept this press because he thought it was so brilliant to have a press that people didn't use anymore.
Yeah.
So you started going. You teach film, which you've used.
Well, I teach photography.
You teach
in the art
photography, but
department.
you use
CSUN.
film. You use film, but you also had to go into the digital age.
Yes.
You used digital
So I
cameras.
teach digital as well.
Do you?
I mean, you have to. You have to, because I teach classes where the students use just digital cameras. In fact, it's to the point where they want to know if they can bring their telephone in to use as a camera.
Exactly.
And
but the other thing is, when you talk about that, using film takes me back to when you were talking about assisting, like Helmut Newton.
Oh, yeah.
Like
those were the days.
You don't have assistants anymore, right?
Oh, no. There are still photographers working. I think it's just a smaller group, and they're very refined, and there are assistants. The advertising photographers, I was on the board for years, and they've changed their name. They're called the Artistic. It's still APA. I think it's the Artistic Photographers of America or something.
But they still use assistants, because I think you have great stories with Helmut Newton, for instance, in Beverly Hills.
Yeah. Well, it reminded me of a story. Couple of stories actually. He would often do things off the cuff, just kind of do them. And one day we were shooting this big account for Tiffany, and he had some famous person standing in front of the Tiffany window with their jewelry on, and he was taking pictures, and all of a sudden a motorcycle cop comes up and stops and says, "Sir, do you have a permit to do this?" And he asked me that, and I'm saying, well, ask him, I don't.
I'm just the assistant.
So he stops what he's doing and he says, "Do you know who I am?" And the cop says, "I don't care who you are. Do you have a permit?" And he said, "No." He said, "Well, you have to have a permit. You have to stop doing what you're doing." And that was it. We had to stop shooting.
Oh, he did stop?
That's it. He
had
did
to.
stop.
He did, yeah.
He didn't want to get arrested.
No.
Because they would have arrested him.
Yeah.
So then a week later we came back and we shot the thing whenever we got the permit.
You did get a permit?
We got the permit and did that.
Yeah.
He did the same thing on Santa Monica Beach. This would happen all the time. He'd come on the beach. There was one person sitting on the beach. He wanted nobody on the beach. There were these seagulls right where he wanted to be. There was this girl laying on the beach. It was a fantastic scene. This guy standing there, and he goes, "Get the F off my beach!" To this guy.
This person?
Yeah. And this guy looks at him and says, "Who do you think you are?" And he gets up and he's so angry he's going to punch him. And I pulled him aside. I said, "Look, it's okay. I'm sorry." He gets really anxious. He's trying to take a picture.
He's trying to take a picture? Yeah. So what, right?
Yeah, he's so upset. And he's obviously was French. And the guy, I told him, I said, it's Helmut Newton. And he's, "Helmut Newton? It's Helmut Newton! Oh my God!" And the guy fell over backwards. He was like, suddenly he was like, "You can have the entire beach. It's yours."
Your job was taken away. A new assistant came into thing. But then when you started, when you started actually seeing that art and photography was drying up,
yeah,
came up with this ingenious idea?
Yeah, well, you asked
What
me
was it?
earlier, what
I
did
know.
what does biology and chemistry, and this is very important, people should realize, whatever you do earlier in your life, it comes back to you,
I can't believe it, because I did say science, science, science.
Yeah.
How are you going to use it?
Well, science, I mean, when you think about the chemistry involved in photography, it's science.
It is true.
It is science. But
Did you ever develop your own things?
all the time, yeah.
Oh, so you did use, go into the dark room and develop.
Oh, yeah.
Are you teaching your
the metal
students?
plates that I make?
Yeah.
Those were all done by me. Yeah.
Oh, they were. Oh, but do you teach your students how to develop? Do they go
Oh,
into
yeah.
Oh, they do.
Oh, they learn. Yeah. Yeah, I teach them all that.
Good. So, okay,
Yeah.
sorry, I diverse again.
No, it's fine. So
here's
you
your
wanted me to
science,
show
you
you
got it here.
what happened with. Okay, so my wife was working at Universal Studios, and she says to me, we got all these toxic chemicals we're using to clean brushes, paint the makeup
right.
brushes, and they wanted something they could
She's a makeup artist and a costumer.
A costume designer.
Yeah, costume
and
designer.
She was working there, and she said, "This stuff is getting to me. They bring all the brushes to her. She has to clean the entire park's brushes, right?" So she said, "Look, I can't take this anymore." And she said, "Come up with something." So I came up with an idea. A friend of mine was an inventor. He inspired me, and I came up with this idea after she inspired me as well.
Yes, after she told you
She
to
told
do
me
something.
to do it.
And what is it?
Basically, it's a non-toxic product. It's made from citrus.
Oh.
It's a non-toxic citrus makeup brush cleaner. And we put a little bit into like a jar. We developed a jar, and it's so amazing because our first customer was Universal Studios. Our second customer was Paramount Studios.
Oh, so the studios
Yeah.
went for this,
Oh,
and they're using it.
Because they were using, at the time, this was in 1995 when I developed this, they were using dry cleaning fluid and acetone.
Very
to clean.
toxic.
Yeah, and this was Star Trek.
Wow.
And they
this,
had all
this
those
is like
prosthetics they took off.
environmentally
this
sound.
is like amazing stuff. So, we put a little lipstick on here. You got all this lipstick. You can see I don't know if you can see the lipstick. That's a lot of lipstick.
I could see it.
I just put it into this cleaner like this. Okay. And that's how fast it cleans lipstick off your brush.
That just cleaned it off. It off.
It works on latex, acrylic.
It's
cleans.
just for brushes. It's just for makeup people. It's just for basically.
We designed it for that, but everybody in the industry
studios?
uses it. Yeah.
Oh, but in the industry, but in the studios.
It's well known in the industry. Yeah.
And what's it called?
Parian Spirit.
Parian Spirit.
My name. Yeah.
That's great. And then what are these other little things?
Well, they're all the same liquid, but just different ways to use it. Let's say you have a powder brush. You don't want to stick it in there because it'll take too long to dry. So we spray the outside of it, and then you clean it.
And then all the powder comes off of it?
Yeah, all the powder comes off. I don't have any powder in there, but you get the idea.
Yeah, and it's
then
just fresh.
You dry it. It just dries really fast. You just blot it off.
I can smell the lemon.
It's natural product.
I can smell the lemon. So did you have to go into the chemistry lab to do this?
Yes, of
Or
course.
did you go into your kitchen?
Both.
Did you have a lemon tree?
Well, part of my issue was that because I was a microbiologist, I was very interested in people transferring bacteria from one phase to another.
I would imagine.
And that was not an issue. That was not a concern at the time. People were just using, there were people using alcohol for cleaning it.
Yeah.
For
and does that kill it? Does that kill the bacteria?
That worked very well. It works very well. But it wasn't like an established idea. So that's what our company did. Our mantra was cleans, conditions, and disinfects.
Oh, disinfects.
And we taught the whole industry that they had to disinfect their brushes.
Yeah, because that's a really dangerous thing,
and you can see this
it?
brush is ready to use again.
Boop, 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 boop. And I think we've come to the end of our time. We've talked about your books, your memoirs, your Grand Park, your 3D camera, your wonderful artwork, and our long, long time friendship. We'll see you next time on the Joan Quinn Profiles. So keep writing to JAQUINN1 at AOL.com.